You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Hristodoulou.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Hristodoulou, and today, working through the second half of the games for Week 5 of the USFL, I'll be making my predictions, breaking down the game, giving you a final score, who I think is going to win, all that and more for Sunday's matchups in the USFL. If you have not already, at the end of this video, make sure you go check out my picks for Saturday's games. I dropped that one out yesterday, so make sure you give that one a listen once you're done here. But all I ask from you, comment down below, let me know who you think's going to win, and let's dive right in, shall we? We have two games on tap for Sunday. The New Jersey Generals will be taking on the Philadelphia Stars. This one's going to be at 12 p.m. Eastern Time from Ford Field in Detroit, Michigan. You can catch this game on NBC and Peacock if you're looking to watch two teams that are in very different places right now, I could say, in the North Division. The Stars are looking to avoid dropping 4 straight games as their offense has just kind of completely fallen apart, whereas the Generals are coming in off of a loss, but a very hard-fought and tough battle of a loss, and one that, you don't walk away feeling too bad about. It was a very good defensive battle, and one that I didn't really expect to be as as a low-scoring affair type of game, but I think it proved just how good this Generals defense actually is, and one that teams really need to look out for in the back half of the season as we approach it. Looking at the Generals here, when I look at their offense and how they stack up against this Stars defense that just has not really been great, I just say to the Generals, keep doing what you're doing. They really can't seem to go wrong with the formula that they have right now, going up against the Stars defense that's been allowing about 149 yards a game and 6 rushing touchdowns. The way they do things, it's not very heavy in the pass. They've only had 80 pass attempts on the season, which is a league low, but they're very good at scheming up what they want. They have a really good running back in Darius Victor. They do have some good playmakers as well in the wide receiver room. Cam Eccles-Looper has been starting to, his star has been no pun intended there, but his star is starting to shine a little bit bright there in the receiving game, but DeAndre Johnson is very mobile, and it's very clear that they're good at scheming up those designed run plays for whether it's going to be, a type of handoff to the running back or one of those read option plays where the quarterback's deciding whether he hangs on the football or not. They've been doing a really good job with that, and for a Stallions defense that just hasn't really done well against the run, keep doing what you're doing. I have a hard time trying to tell you to do anything else. It works, and clearly it's something the Stars struggle with. Why change what isn't broken? As for the defense, I would definitely go into this game maybe expecting a little bit of a quicker passing attack, and I'll get into that a little bit when I start talking about the Stars specifically, but their defensive front needs to just pin their ears back and start swinging. The Stars have allowed 18 sacks in the season. That is a league high by, I believe, 6. So, they're letting everybody come through. Everybody is coming through for sacks. Heck, you might be getting a sack against the Stars this weekend, but realistically speaking, I just feel like, the defense over there in New Jersey has just been undeniably good. They're so good at getting to the quarterback and creating pressure. They don't necessarily always bring him down, which is probably like the one thing that I wish, but I think your numbers might get a little bit inflated with the way things look in Philadelphia this week. They're both top 3 in pass defense and in run defense. So, this is a group that you pin your ears back and let the rest kind of take care of itself, because again, this Stars offensive line has not been great, and even some of the play calling hasn't been great. I expect things to maybe get sped up a little bit to try to mitigate some of the offensive line issues they have. That's at least what I would expect, because when your offensive line is struggling, you want to try to just get the football out and get it moving as quickly as possible. So I'm expecting something that from the Stars, but if that's not the case, I think the Maulers defense might have themselves quite a game going in this matchup here. As for the Philadelphia Stars, first and foremost, and I don't think it's really been much of a secret, the offensive line play has got to improve. I already mentioned the 18 sacks they've allowed this year, and their running game has all but evaporated at this point in the season, and it's just, until that starts to sort itself out, I'm really concerned about what they're trying to do offensively over here. And to couple that with, again, the struggle in the running game, it almost feels like they're kind of abandoning it now. You had only 9 rushing attempts last week in your loss to the Showboats. You have got to commit to running the football more than 9 times in a game. The Stars lead the league in passing attempts, and while that's not necessarily, there's always going to be a passing attempt leader, when when you look at the numbers, it's not even because they're a pass-heavy team. It's because they only pass the football. They don't run the football at all, and it's not producing their W's. It's not producing any real successful offense, no sustained drives. This group needs to get back to running the football. I know the O-line has, again, been struggling, but you have got to commit to a running game in sub-capacity. It's not like Matt Colburn just suddenly became a bad running back. He's been really good as a receiving threat and as a running back just coming out of the backfield. You have got to start running the football more if you're the Philadelphia Stars. And on top of that, you've got to speed up the passing game. And I kind of alluded to this when I was talking about the Generals' defense and what they should prepare for, but I think you really need to focus in on just quick throws, getting the ball out as fast as possible for Case Cookus' sake, because at this point, I don't know if he's going to make it to the end of the season. Again, 18 sacks already. He is the most hit quarterback by far in the league. Slants, drags, flats, checkdowns, whatever you need. Quick passing attack. Do not try to do the long, drawn-out deep balls. It's not working because Case Cookus is under pressure and he's throwing over or under his receivers because, again, the clock is just flying in his head, I'm sure, right now with the way he's been dealing with pressure. Speed up the passing game. Look for those quick plays. Let's try to get a little bit away from the deep balls that you're trying to connect on here because clearly things are not really going too well in the passing game. Speed it up. Like I said, slants, drags, flats, whatever you need, just get the ball out and get it out quickly, and go from there. Try to get something going on offense that doesn't put your quarterback in a spot where he needs to prolong the amount of time he's holding onto the play because he needs the play to take more time to develop. Help out your offensive line because they're clearly struggling. Let's get a quicker pass game going over there, and you might have a chance in this matchup here. As for the defense, the big thing here is really just finding an answer for that Generals rushing attack I already talked a lot about. I mean, the Generals are averaging 169 yards a game. They're ahead by like 30 some odd yards a game per average with the way that their dual threat running back quarterback situation is kind of going right now. And the way I see it, the Generals, they prefer to run the football over passing the football, and that's kind of clear with the way they do things. It's funny because both these teams are like on opposite ends of the spectrum. The Stars do nothing but throw the football, and then the Generals kind of do nothing but run the football. They have only 80 passing attempts on the year. I think they're the only sub 100 passing attempt team in the league right now. So, I mean, you know what to expect from this Generals team. You've got to prepare for it, but also try to force maybe a mistake or two. I will say that DeAndre Johnson's season as a passer has been a little bit up and down, and we've seen that a couple of weeks now. So while the passing game hasn't necessarily been strong, it's at least been mistake-free. They only have 4 passing touchdowns, but they also they also have 0 interceptions thrown as well. Their passing game has been efficient and mistake-free, but it hasn't been anything to write home about. So maybe try to force a mistake here or there. Try to get something going. Your pass rush came to life a little bit the last few weeks, but right now, you got to figure out what, and everyone seems to be struggling with it right now. Even the Breakers had a hard time dealing with it. They were able to win, but they had a hard time dealing with it. You've got to try to figure out how to negate that running game that the Generals are deploying because nobody seems to have an answer for it. But I feel like if someone can find that answer, again, passing game hasn't been strong. It's been a little up and down. It's just been mistake-free. So there are opportunities for the Stars to come away and steal this game. I don't want to completely write them off, but it's just an unlikely road to find themselves going down come time to finish up the game in that final few minutes. As for who I think is going to win this matchup here, I feel like I kind of spent a decent amount of this preview here of this game kind of ragging on the Stars a little bit here, and I don't want it to sound like that. I'm just trying to be realistic, and I'm explaining what I've been seeing and what I've been watching from the last few weeks from the Stars team. And as of right now, having a really hard time believing in them winning another game until they sort out especially the offensive line woes, but adjusting the way their passing game is being handled. I feel like they try to take a lot of deep shots, and some of their plays just take too long to develop for how much the offensive line is struggling. So I'm going to go with the Generals for the victor in this game here. I have them winning 23-13. The Generals have not necessarily been putting up a ton of points this year, And the Stars offense right now, again, has been struggling to get anything more than like 13, maybe 16, 17 points in a game. So I expect this to be a little bit of a lower scoring affair, a little bit more defensive. The Generals, like they've kind of been doing, just kind of ground and pound their opponents and potentially into submission or maybe coming up just short. But I don't expect a very high score in this matchup here. Potential that maybe the Generals run away with it and they push 30 points. Yeah, maybe, but I'm trying to give the Stars a realistic chance in this game here, and maybe it's a little bit closer than you might expect it to be. As for the second matchup that we're looking at here, we're talking the Memphis Showboats taking on the New Orleans Breakers. This one's going to be at 3 p.m. on Sunday from Protective Stadium in Birmingham, Alabama. This game is on Fox. My initial thoughts on this one when I look at these two teams, I mean, you have the Showboats who are riding high off their very first win over a very struggle-bussing Philadelphia Stars team right now, but they now have the impossible task, or what feels like an impossible task, of taking down an undefeated New Orleans Breakers. Then you have a Breakers team who are continuing their undefeated season, riding high, feeling good. They were able to kind of basically beat the Generals kind of at their own game with the whole like ground and pound, but also they have a very effective passing game, but they're able to lean on their running back and get the job done in a really tough and grindy matchup. The Showboats, for them to come out victorious in this game, need to make sure of a few things here. While I will say that Cole Kelly looked solid in his start, that's about as far as I want to say for how last week kind of panned out for him. He had a couple of rushing touchdowns, but he was sub 60% completion percentage, and on top of that, they only was like 150 some odd yards passing. It was progress, but not anything that I'm sitting here going, yeah, this is the recipe for success. Protecting Kelly in this game is definitely a must. The Breakers have 10 sacks on the season, so it is definitely something you need to account for when you're going into this game here. But I really want them to focus in on getting a legitimate, solid ground game going. They're currently averaging about 69 yards a game on the ground here, which is the second fewest in the league. Running back Kareth White started to kind of pop and shine in some places on the offense. Obviously, he's been doing really well on special teams. He had 3 kick returns last week for 107 yards, but I'm talking about specifically what he did offensively. He had 81 total yards altogether between the running and the receptions that he had, 18 touches altogether. So with that in mind, lean into Kareth White because it seems like his star is starting to shine just a little bit there. He seems like he has an ability to make some plays, and you really see it on some of his returns. So if you can utilize him a little bit more, maybe scheme up some plays around him, maybe you find a little bit more success, and maybe you can lean on a defense that has not been the best, but also not the worst by any means. I'd say they're roughly about middle of the road there. The other thing you have to figure out, and this is one that so far since week 2 when he started playing with the Breakers, and nobody has really any answer for at this moment, and I guess the Generals maybe did the best so far out of anyone so far in somewhat containing him, is figuring out how to slow down Wes Hills. Listen, the Breakers offense, really great when it comes to passing the football, but Wes Hills on his own has just been an absolute wrecking machine. I don't know what it's going to take to try to get him, to neutralize him or to take him out of the game per se, but the Showboats have a task that I don't know if their defense quite has an answer for, but if there's one thing that you have circled in this game that you're like, we need to make sure we take care of this in this matchup here, if the Showboats want any chance of winning this football game, you've got to try to take the ball out of Wes Hills' hands and force the Showboats to, look in other ways to try to keep the chains moving. And that's no easy task because you have a handful of other really good players over there. He's just one of many, but Wes Hills, man, like the hype train is alive and well, and for very good reason. He is just steamrolling through defenses right now, whether it's on the ground or through the air, catching the football out of the backfield. Good luck to them. But if there's one thing you really got to focus on beyond just trying to, maybe cause a hiccup or two with McLeod Bethel-Thompson and him throwing the football and getting after him, you got to find a way to stop Wes Hills. As for the Breakers going into this game here, I'm firmly expecting that we see them air the football out. While the Showboats defense has not necessarily been great by any means in any real category, they specifically struggle against the run. Against the pass. They're allowing 209 yards per game, which is the second most in the league at this point. So I'm expecting you're going to see a lot of passing from McLeod Bethel-Thompson, and don't be surprised if a bulk majority of who I was just talking about, West Hills' numbers, maybe come in the passing game. He had about 70-some-odd yards last week while he was playing. At the first week, he was sub 100 yards on the ground, but he still pushed 150 yards total on the week because of how many balls he caught through the air and how many plays he was able to make with the ball in his hands during that. But I expect a lot of passing, and I think if you want to be successful in this game here, you're definitely, I would say, like when you look at the skill of the secondary compared to the skill set of the receiving group that you have there. Sage Surratt has been unbelievable. You obviously have Adams and Dixon. There are a lot of talented guys there, and I think their talent outweighs what they have on the Showboats defense. So don't be surprised to just kind of see the Breakers come out swinging. Like, yes, I assume they're going to be running the football with West Hills here and there, but if McLeod Bethel-Thompson's just letting it rip and that offense or that defense is having a hard time stopping the passing attack, I don't see why they don't lean into it in this game. As for the defense, like I kind of mentioned, Cole Kelly looked solid last week. I think for the Breakers, what you want to do in this game, bring that pressure and make the Showboats find out just how solid of a quarterback Cole Kelly really is. I don't want to sit here and count him out. Like I said, he had a solid game last week. Wasn't really anything to write home about. He did have a couple of rushing touchdowns when they got close to the end zone, so good on him for finding the end zone, making plays with his legs. But this Breakers defense has been on quite the level this year so far, and if there's a defense that's going to really test his mettle and his ability to be QB1 for this team in this league, it's going to be the Breakers. So bring the pressure, and good luck to the Showboats, I guess. On top of that, if I had to pick out guys you want to keep an eye on, well, I did mention Kareth White kind of emerging in the offense a little bit. Wide receivers Vinny Papali and wide receiver Ryan McDaniel, they're both like pretty much neck and neck in terms of production so far for receptions and for yards. Those are the two guys you definitely want to keep an eye on and try to limit. But right now, I look at this game, and for my winner, I've got the Breakers, man. I have a really hard time feeling like the Showboats are going to be able to pull off an upset. They have looked not great against some teams that have been pretty good, and it took a floundering Stars team to make them look like a competent football team in like all phases. So best of luck to the Showboats in this one here. But I've got the Breakers. I have them winning 36-20, and I feel like I might even be being a little too generous with the 20 for the Showboats here. But when I was going over the two matchups for today, I did not really have too much to question for who I want to make these picks on, and maybe that's me being a little bit overconfident in how I feel with both the Generals and the Breakers, but both of these matchups here just weigh so heavily in favor of both the Generals and the Breakers. I don't know if I can pick the two opponents that they have respectively as winners in this game here. I think it's going to get kind of ugly with the Showboats and the Breakers. Hopefully for their sake it doesn't, but I feel like it might. And while I do think the Generals are going to win, and I think they have a good case to win fairly handedly, their style is more like, beat you in a submission type style. So it's not necessarily the most highest scoring and like point production type of offense that they have going on over there. It's just a really smothering defense and a very effective ground game. This has probably been, and I'm going to probably eat my words for this. But this has been one of the easier a couple of games for me to pick and decide on so far this season. Did not put a ton of thought into both of these games here, just because I was kind of feeling like I already know who I want to select going into my preparation stages before I sat down to record this. So give me the Generals, give me the Breakers. Best of luck to their opponents, but I like them as very clear favorites going into these matchups here. But those are my picks for these two games. I appreciate you for hanging out and watching. If you made it all the way to the end, make sure you check out my picks for Saturday as well. But that's it for me. I'll catch you all next time. Have a good one.